Hey everybody, welcome to Cousin Jack Carves. So today we're going to be looking at and carving some cartoon style eyes, and that includes some standard cartoon style eyes, some gouged eyes, some squinty eyes. We'll even take a look at the way that John Overby carves his cartoon eyes. So come along for the ride, have some fun, and oh yeah, we're going to be talking about this little guy a little bit too. Take a second please and hit that like button. Tell everyone else on YouTube that this is something they may want to look at. Thanks a lot, everybody. Let's get started. All right, so here is Little Uncle Sam. This is carved from one of the itty-bitty type of patterns, a little different, but Little Uncle Sam here is looking for a new home, and he's going to be the giveaway for my next drawing. Every 90 days, I hold a random drawing from all my public subscribers, so if you would like an opportunity to win Little Uncle Sam here, subscribe. And if you hit the bell for notifications, you'll never miss one of these videos when I publish. Also, I'll let you know that whoever wins the drawing, I will pay for all the shipping. No cost to you. So today we're going to be carving some cartoon eyes. We've already done a video all about realistic eyes, and there are a certain set of rules, right, to follow. Don't put the eyes too close to the nose and all kinds of stuff. Well, with cartoon eyes, you're free to do just about anything you'd like. There's a lot of different ways to carve cartoon eyes, and we will explore them. So one of the things we'll do first is sort of a squinty-eyed look, and this is an example. This is a bottle stopper that I carved, let's see, in 1996. So yeah, this guy came to life 25 years ago. And you can see the eyes are just squinty little eyes. Now you can say, well, those are somewhat realistic, and they are somewhat realistic, but certainly kind of a caricature. So we will start with an example of how to carve these squinty eyes. Now I've done a little pre-work to prepare my block of wood today. This is I guess what you would say is a little study stick, and I'm going to go ahead and use my Helvey medium detail knife. I think this is probably my favorite. It seems to be my go-to knife most of the time. So with the squinty eyes, generally what you see is that there's this brow ridge, and then the squinty eye is deep set just right under the brow ridge. There's really not much visible in terms of an upper eyelid at all, and not much need to have an upper eyelid or carve an upper eyelid. And these are the type of eyes that you will see very frequently on a wood spirit, for example. And it's kind of indicative of an older person, usually a man who has this, pretty prominent brow ridge, which you don't see very often in women, but more in men. And so you can see I've done a little foundational pre-work here. So this, let's say, is the nose, and then I've got the brow ridge. And carving that squinty eye is really simple. It's nothing more than a narrow type of a V-cut. So I can come in here with the tip of my blade and just going to swoop down a little bit and then out. And then I'll come back in and, like I say, make a very narrow V-cut. Take that out. And that's how simple a squinty eye is. There is not a lot to it. However, it can be very effective and very realistic at the same time. There are plenty of people, I think of Chef Michael Symon, for example. Michael Symon is not that old of a guy, but most of the time he is smiling so much that all you really see is like a squint. And with these squinty eyes, depending upon the shape that you make, you can achieve different looks and different expressions. You can make it look like an angry face. You can make it look as if the person is laughing or smiling. Or you can even make them look like they're serene. So the squinty eye is pretty simple and pretty straightforward. So next we'll move on to, that's what we call the typical cartoon eye. And let me show you an example. So this is a little pumpkin totem that I made. And my aim here was to have two different style of eyes in one piece. So here you can see the more realistic style where you have the nose, the bridge of the nose, and the eyes are separated on either side of the bridge, right? The eyelids are carved in a way that you would see more realistically. And then down here we have a cartoon style eye. And you can see that the most prominent difference between the two is that the cartoon eye has a shelf. So the eyes are up here above the nose. They're not divided by that nose, the bridge of the nose. They sit upon this shelf and they're somewhat connected. And then you can see that the eyelids are probably larger than normal. So this is what I would call a typical cartoon style eye. Let's go ahead and make one. And to do that, the first thing we do is sort of build that foundation that I was talking about. That foundation includes our nose right here, and we have this shelf, okay? You can see that I've done, like I say, a little bit of pre-work to build that shelf above the nose. And that's not difficult to do. You just come up here, you make a stop cut and clear out that space, and you can see it's relatively flat. There's a little curvature here because I carved on the corner of the block of wood. And one of the things I have noticed with a carver that I admire a lot, and that's Chris Hammack. Chris very often makes a sort of a rectangular shape. And so that's kind of what I'm aiming for here. If you ever look at his website, you go to chrishammackart.com. If you look at what he calls his professional series, it's a group of different carvings of people in a variety of occupations. There's a cop and a doctor and a fireman and a nurse. There's really just a whole series of different professions, right? And I believe every single one of those have cartoon style eyes. All right, so what I'm going to do right now is kind of bring this down a little bit, and then we'll have some room for eyelids up above where these eyes will be. So now all I'm going to do, let me just use my pencil to illustrate, literally illustrate. I love that. That was off the top of my head, folks. I'm sorry. Okay, so all I'm going to do is come up here and follow this around and down. Same thing on this side. And the beauty of cartoon eyes is that they can be asymmetrical. Doesn't really matter. You don't have to worry about it. The asymmetry actually helps you achieve some of the cartoon effect. All right, so we'll just come in here with the tip of the knife. I'm going to follow along my pencil line down and out to the corner, just like that. And then on this side, I'll just turn it upside down and come at it from the other direction, kind of just following that line back up to the top. So my next step is really just going to be to slice up and under that stop cut that I just made. And then also finish that off by coming down to the corner and slicing underneath that stop cut. Okay, so now you can see we've got some shape going here. I'm going to come across this line and kind of finish up where the eyelids will be. Just kind of rocking my blade a little bit. And now I'll just carve up to that stop cut. So when you're doing cartoon eyes, as I mentioned, you can use a variety of approaches. Sometimes you'll see cartoon eyes where they are separated, where there's a very clear space in between the two eyes. And sometimes you'll see cartoon eyes that just have a V cut down the center to separate them. And sometimes there's no separation at all. Chris Hammack, for example, like I said, when you look at his website, you'll see very often there's no separation in this rectangular box here where the eyes are, but he'll put a separation here in the eyelids. So I'm just going to go ahead and make a cut for the center of those eyelids, and then just make a V cut to create that separation. Let's go ahead and take a chip out of these corners. That'll help us to build a little more roundness, a little bit more what that eyeball look would be. So we're just going to do that little triangle cut, come at it from one side, get in there with the tip of the blade from the other side, and then slice down through the corner, just like that. And you can see the difference, right? You see the depth that we achieved on that side. It's all about the shadows, right? Creating those shadows, providing some depth. Let's go ahead and do that on the other corner. You may be hearing the chair I'm using today. It's a squeaky chair. It's got a loose arm on it, and it's going to be the star of the video by the time I'm done. Okay, let's go ahead and take out a triangle right here. So, like I said, next we'll just kind of soften up this angle. You can see where those pencil marks are and how we've got that sort of a straight edge. I'm just going to bevel that a little bit. And soften it up. And the last thing I'll do is just kind of clean up that stop cut for the eyelids. Make it nice and even. Now, like I said, this is what we would call the typical sort of cartoon eye. And from there you have options. Like I said, you could have those eyeballs are separated here or not. Most people will paint the eyes in. If you decided to, you could also use a small gouge to create a negative space for the pupils of the eyes if you were not going to paint. But if I wanted to have this guy just looking over this way, I would probably just come in here with my pencil. And there he is. So cartoon eyes can be really, really fun. And this is the typical method that people use to create them. But I believe that there's a carver who has perfected the cartoon eye, and that is John Overby. I don't know if you've ever seen John Overby's carvings. I think they're tremendous. I really admire John and the way he carves. He has a very unique style. You can certainly see a carving and say that's a John Overby carving. And he has a way of carving cartoon eyes. It's somewhat different and more refined, I think. Let's carve using the John Overby style and give it a shot. So John, I'm going to do my best here to replicate your method, and I'm going to put a link to John's video that he posted some years ago on his Facebook site, which is Dry Creek Carvings on Facebook. Click that link and go check that out as well. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is create the eye plane. And let me just show you and explain a little bit about how John's method is different. Because he uses an approach that creates a cartoon eye that's angled on 3 different dimensions. So let's say we've got our nose. It's got the downward angle that you find on many eyes, right? And then if we look at a profile view, let's say again, here's our nose right here. On the profile view, John has his eyes angled back like this. So he's got this sort of a backslash sort of angle to the eye plane, which again is coming downward as well. And then there's a third dimension that he uses, and that is angling out from the center, which is very similar to the way you would carve realistic eyes. So what I mean by that is from the nose, a human face angles outward, and it's probably about a 45-degree angle, right? It's not just a flat surface like we see in so many cartoon eyes. So that if you're looking at it from the profile view here, you can only see one eye at a time because that other eye is on the other side of the head. If we were looking down at this from the top, this being the nose, here's the head, those eyes are angling back on an angle. So there's 3 different planes, 3 different dimensions to John's cartoon eyes. And I think that's one of the things that make them different. And we'll go over that. And I wanted to kind of show you how to set that up. So I didn't do the pre-work. I didn't go ahead and pre-carve the planes that we'll use for the John Overby style cartoon eyes. I wanted you to see that, so we'll do that now. All I have done really is set in a nose. So this would be the bottom of the nose, all right? So we'll come up and we'll make the top of the nose, just a little notch. And we know we want to bring those downward on an angle. Now, I have an advantage here because I'm already carving on the corner of a wooden block. So that's going to give me that one dimension that I just showed you where, you know, the eyes are angling away from the nose on a 45-degree angle as a human face would. So that's already going to be there. So I want to have my little slight downward angle for this eye plane, just like that. So we'll go ahead and carve down to it. Now, remembering the other thing that we're trying to achieve here is an angle back along the way. John is an interesting carver. You'll find that on many of his carvings, he makes his noses upside down. Basically, the meaning there is that while most noses, probably all noses, are broader at the bottom than they are at the top, John makes his the other way around so that they are wider at the top of the nose and they become more narrow at the bottom. It's an interesting approach, and it's one of the things that really makes his carvings unique. And It's something that creates your style. Okay, so very quickly, I think we've got ourselves a foundation here that we can work with. So you can see already we've got this plane, the center of the eyes here, a downward angle, 45-degree angle. You can only see one eye at a time when you look at it profile view. And we do have these angles moving from out to in, like that. So the next thing we'll do is sort of pencil in how we want these eyes to be framed up here. Just to help you visualize, okay? And again, they can be asymmetrical. They don't have to be exactly the same, not on a cartoon style. So you can see this slopes out just a little bit at the bottom. And then we're going to have our center right like that. So then our first cut, now that we have our foundation here, our first cut is going to be to separate those two eyes. We're going to come in with the tip of the knife pretty deep, as you can see. I'm just going to bring that down to the nose. Next, we're going to set in the rest of the border of these eyes. And again, we're going to go pretty deep. Come to the top here where we have that separation. Put the tip of my knife in here and just follow along. And come over to the other side. As a left-handed carver, it means whenever I'm making a left eye, I'm going to be carving it upside down. If you're a right-handed carver, that's going to be making the right eye for you. Okay, so we've got our stop cuts going around. Next thing we'll do is make a V cut here in the center. We've already put in a pretty deep stop cut. So now our V cut will give us some of the separation between the two eyes. And we'll do that just with the tip of the blade, coming at it from an angle on one side, and then angle from the other side to make that V. And sometimes it comes out cleanly and sometimes it does not. So we've got that separation going there. Next thing we'll do is sort of taper the top of where the eyelids is going to be. This is something that John does that I think a lot of people who carve cartoon eyes don't really go through this step to put in the contours and the taper of the way that John does. So for this, we're just going to come up here and sort of angle our blade and bring it out. So I stopped about there. And over here on this side, again, we're creating a contour, sort of a bevel for these eyelids and how they're going to look. And as I mentioned, when I'm carving the left eye, that's a little bit more challenging. So then we also will take out a small little piece for a bevel from the bottom up to where we stopped, just a little piece. And then again on this side, we'll just take out a small piece of wood here. So like I say, this is one of the things that sets John apart when he's putting in his cartoon eyes. All right, so the next thing we'll do is make a stop cut for our eyelids. And what John does is he makes his eyelids sort of arched, and he'll have the eyelids, you know, beginning over here from the center and then ending lower than they are on the inside. So they're higher, arching down to a lower mark. He says he likes that. It gives him sort of a sleepy look, and it avoids his carving having an angry expression. So yeah, we'll have this sort of an arch for the eyelid. Somewhat like that. So what we'll need is a stop cut, and what I'm going to try and do is come up above my pencil line so I can get rid of that pencil line and make my stop cut from in to out. And then on my other side here, again, try to get above my pencil line. And there we go. So now all we're going to do is slice up to the stop cut that we just made and begin shaping what will be the eyeballs and creating that separation from our eyelids. So what I should have mentioned earlier is that whenever you're carving eyes, make sure you have a sharp knife. Go ahead and drop your knife before you even think about carving eyes. There's so many little detailed parts to an eye, right? With the eyelids and little chip cuts, you name it. Now I've lost a little bit of that separation here in the center. I'm going to reestablish that. Come back in here with my angles to create that V, separate those eyeballs. And that's not unusual when you're working on a carving. There may be times where you'll notice an opportunity to improve something. So now that we have created our eyelids, the next thing we will do is take out a chip from each corner, the way we did with the typical cartoon eye. We'll just come in here with the tip of the blade from one angle, and then from the next. And then what we're doing here is slicing down into the corner to remove that triangle, okay? That's the goal. And again, we've got some pretty good depth going there. It helps to create sort of a roundness when we think about the eyeball. And we'll come over here to the other side. Tip of the blade in there. And from this side. And then slice down into the corner. So from there, we would just continue rounding this out some to develop our eyes. And yes, I have to tell you something. If you want to, I'm not saying that you should. I'm just saying, if you want to, and all of you purists, turn your audio off for a second. You can sand those eyeballs to get them smooth. That's right. Jack just said the S word. Sandpaper. Let me show you something, folks. So this is what I call my foundling. And you can see it's got those cartoon style eyes, and he's got that cross-eyed sort of look. I wanted that because he's got this great big horn in the middle of his nose, which is actually a shark's tooth. But I wanted him to have that cross-eyed look, and guess what? I sanded those eyeballs. I confess. It's the only time I've ever done it, but I did. I did sand those eyeballs because I wanted them to be smooth before I painted them. I didn't want them to be faceted like you would find on, a lot of carvings where you want those facets. So the secret is out. If you want to, you can do it. Okay, so we've taken a chip out of the corners. Next thing we will do again here is we're going to soften up this border, right? Sort of this brow, making that more refined and look better. So that's already improving that. And then one of the things that John will do as well is he'll clean up this line here. Of course, let's say this is our nose. He'll typically come in here and take a scoop from here up towards the nose and soften this line. So that's going to be starting from the corner and sort of scooping up. You're turning that blade like that. Clean that up. And then the same thing on the other side, where we're going to just come in from the corner and take a scoop, sort of creating that bevel. And this is the primary difference between the way that John carves his cartoon eyes and the way that others do. So yes, please look for the link in the description below this video and to go take a look and see how John uses his method. It's I think a 9-minute video altogether. All right, so we've done a few different examples so far. Next we will do some Banana Man eyes. So Banana Man here has a very flat surface for a face, okay? There's not a lot of angle there. It's pretty flat. And you can see he's got these cartoon eyes. You'll notice there are no eyelids. And the nose is really just two really simple cuts coming down this way. But what I wanted to achieve with Banana Man, I wanted him to look happy, like he was smiling. So I wanted the lower eyelid here, or I guess it's the bag under the eye, to be curved. See how that's curved on both sides there? It's like he has his cheeks coming up so high because he's smiling. Of course, bananas don't have cheeks, right? But this is the look that I wanted to achieve. And I did it with this tool right here. This is a number 5 gouge. Banana Man's eyes are simple, really easy. It's just using the gouge to create a cut here and a cut at the top, and then some straight lines to connect it. So we'll do our Banana Man face, or Banana Man eye. And to do that, we'll use a flat surface on our piece of wood here. So let's just say we have our Banana Man nose. And then all we're going to do is make a couple of these curved cuts with the gouge and connect them. It's simple, really is. And yeah, if you did not have a gouge or do not have a gouge, yeah, you could do it with a knife. You really could. So first thing I'll do is I'll basically just kind of carve in where that line would be for the nose, just so we have a reference here. And it's just simple, slice downward, come back at it from the other way. It's a very narrow V cut. That's all that is. We're removing one little sliver to create that line where the nose would be. So next I'll just take my gouge, my number 5, I have it upside down, and I'll establish the line at the bottom and make a cut. Just wiggle it back and forth a little. That's where that bottom of the eye will be, sort of that cheek. And I want to make a similar cut up high here for the top of the eye. Again, just set that in there and wiggle side to side a little bit, up and down, and remove it. So all I'm going to do now is connect them. They're already connected on this side where I've put in that sliver of piece of wood there for the nose, to establish the nose. So I'm just going to come and connect the top to the bottom on the other side. And of course I would carve a left eye, because that means I have to do it upside down. For you, if you're right-handed, the left eye is easier. All right, so you can see I just basically took the tip of my blade and drew a line from the bottom to the top. All we're going to do now is start working against those stop cuts that we made. Just come from the inside and carve right up next to it, like that. Come across that top, just under the curvature. Bring that over. Same thing along the bottom. And it's pretty straightforward, folks. Those are some simple eyes. And just to help you out as far as visualizing that eye, got my pencil here. I would just come in with my paint, right, and make an eye. Now with the Banana Man eye, you could, if you wanted to, take out a chip in the corners. It'd be pretty small. You can do it. But that right there is the basis of the Banana Man eye. It shows up more when it's painted, of course. So all right, we have one more to go, and this is really probably the easiest of all the eyes that we're looking at today and the cartoon eyes that we're going to have examples for. This is an example that comes from Mike Shipley. He has these snowmen that we've done a tutorial for, and I'll put a little link at the top of the page here for the snowman tutorial. All we're doing here is gouging out 2 hollows for an eye, and then painting in a pupil with a white dot. Not much to that, right? That's 2 very simple cuts and very easy. If you do not have a gouge, you can go watch the tutorial. In the tutorial, I show you how to make the same look with only a knife. And this is the guy that I carved in that tutorial, and you can see those eyes. They might look like they were gouged, but nope, those are knife cuts to create the same look. And you can check that out. So let's go ahead. For this one, we're going to use this number 5 gouge again. And you can see I've done the pre-work to sort of set up the planes for the eyes. So if this is our nose, we have these really broad sort of areas on either side of the nose, very broad. And all we're going to do is come in here with sort of a little bit of a downward angle again, like we have with so many of our eyes. Like that. And use our gouge. We start from the nose and we work our way out towards the outer edge. Okay? So we're just going to come in here with our gouge. And we got a little tear out there. Come to the other side, doing the same thing. Now what I would do with this, I would come in here with my knife and just sort of clean up the edge a little bit. Doesn't take much. It's pretty much done. And then really all we're doing to finish off our eye is painting in our eyeball, our pupil I should say. And that is that. Well, all right, folks, I think we've gone through 5 different examples today of how to carve cartoon eyes. I appreciate you coming along for the ride. Make sure you subscribe. If you don't want to subscribe, please take a second and click that thumbs up for the like button. That like button is how you tell folks on YouTube that, hey, this is a video worth looking at, and I appreciate it. Okay, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.